Shalom. This is about Parashat Beshallach, the passage in which the children of Israel actually crossed the Red Sea. There's a very famous song in there, which is the Song of the Sea that we chant every morning in our services, and it's one of only two passages that we stand up for when we hear it chanted in the synagogue. The other is the Ten Commandments, which comes next week, and then again in Deuteronomy. But I want to tell you more about the portion because it's got some fantastic stories. Pharaoh last week let the children of Israel go, but this week he changes his mind and he sends his army after them. And they're stuck at the sea. They're very obviously distraught. They see the army coming from behind. In front of them is the Red Sea. They don't know what to do. And they cry out to Moses. Now, Moses then doesn't say Moses cries out to God, but God says to Moses, Lama titak elai, why are you crying out to me? Daber b'nei Israel, speak to the children of Israel, lift up your rod, stretch forth your hand, let the children of Israel go forward. But God is basically saying, as the Midrash says, you got to help those who help themselves. Don't just stand there, do something. It's not time just to pray, take action. And then the Midrash also says the water didn't open until somebody actually jumped in and had faith in God. So the Midrash presents a guy named Nachshon, an assistant to Moses, for going into the water, and finally when he gets up to about his nose and he's about to drown, one more step, the sea opens. So he goes across. There's another Midrash there. Rabbi Lawrence Kushner in the book where God was in this place and I didn't know it, tells a story about Reuben and Shimon, two Jews walking across the desert. Instead of saying we're in the middle of the greatest miracle ever, they're complaining about the starfish and the seaweed and their feet are getting mucky. Sometimes in the middle of the great miracles of life, we don't see the reality. Well, the army pursues them across, and of course the army drowns eventually, which is very sad, but of course they shouldn't have been trying to annihilate the children of Israel. And to mark the sadness of the army's loss in trying to destroy Israel, but they still died, we take a drop out of our wine cup at the Passover Seder to mark on that. So the Israelites get across, and there's some other problems too. Miriam had led the children of Israel, the women of Israel, in song, the other side. But in this story, the children of Israel face bitter water, they face hunger, so God sends the manna, which many scholars believe is actually a product of the cactus in the desert that is nutritious. But our ancestors believe that God was sending it as a source to feed them. And then they're very thirsty because of the bitter water. We have here the scene where Moses strikes the rock to get water out of the rock. Finally, the parsha ends with a battle against the Amalekites, this evil nation that continues to plague Israel through much of the Bible. And the Torah says that when Moses lifted up his arms, the Israelites were winning, and his arms got tired, so his helpers had to help lift up his arms to keep them up. And of course, the Midrash here says that you have to hold yourself high, you have to hold your head high, you have to be proud of what you're trying to do in the world to make the world a better place, and not be embarrassed and shy and humble. You got to be humble in relationship to God, but be proactive and assertive and have positive self-esteem about your mission to bring people closer to Judaism. And the parsha begins with one other passage, the fulfillment of the promise to Joseph that when they left Egypt, they'd take his bones with them. And so you have this very interesting scene of them taking the bones of Joseph in one container like an ark, and the Ten Commandments, once they got it, in another container. So those are some of the main stories. All of the people of the world have stories, narratives. Think about the own pictures that flash back in your mind about your own life. And the story of the Red Sea is one of the great stories which the children of Israel, still today, the Jewish people still remember with great feeling and power. Such an inspirational story about the miracle of survival and escaping slavery and the influence that had on us and on the whole world.